My fiancée threatened to call off our wedding if I didn't meet her demands. So, I ended things right there. 29 grew up in a small town where people wore the same pair of jeans until they wore out, where big weekends were fishing with my dad or watching movies at home with family. Financial stability was everything to my parents, and they taught me to be careful with money, not out of choice, but out of necessity. After graduating from college, I'd saved steadily, piece by piece. I'd been able to build a modest savings account, and I was proud of that. I wanted to start life on a strong foundation, avoiding debt wherever possible. So when I met Rachel at a friend's birthday party 4 years ago, I felt like I'd found my opposite but equal. She was vibrant, funny, the kind of person who could light up a room with her energy and charm. She grew up in a well-off family that didn't think twice about treating themselves to nice things. From day one, I knew our backgrounds were different, but I didn't see that as a problem. If anything, I thought it could be a strength. I figured we could meet in the middle, balance each other out. She'd push me to loosen up a bit, and I'd help her stay grounded. Fast forward to our engagement, and I quickly realized that my assumptions were naive. Our wedding planning began with the usual excitement. Spreadsheets, Pinterest boards, discussions about venues and color schemes. We talked about budgeting, but the moment we sat down to actually set numbers, things started spiraling out of control. Rachel made it clear she had a very specific vision in mind, something straight out of a fairy tale. She called it. It started small. She showed me a few venues, all beautiful, but all with hefty price tags. I tried to suggest alternatives, maybe a backyard wedding or a smaller venue with the same aesthetic. She brushed me off, insisting it had to be perfect. When I pushed back, she responded with a pout. "This is my dream wedding. Don't you want it to be magical?" "Of course I do, babe. But it's just one day, you know. I'd rather save for our future. A house travel. The kind of things we'll enjoy together for years." She scoffed, almost as if I'd told her I wanted to have the wedding in a parking lot. "You don't get it," she said, shaking her head. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime moment. Don't you want us to have a day we can look back on with pride?" "Sure, but that doesn't mean we have to go overboard and take out loans." But Rachel wasn't listening. Instead, she seemed more interested in planning the event than in thinking about our life beyond it. She wanted us to make a grand entrance, invite nearly 200 guests, and even hinted she'd like a live band rather than a DJ. It was as if she'd been planning a red carpet event rather than a wedding. I tried to stay calm and tell myself that she'd compromise eventually, that we'd find middle ground. But each discussion just seemed to bring new expectations. A few weeks later, she showed me a picture of an engagement ring she really loved. A diamond ring from one of those high-end jewelers downtown. I hadn't even finished paying for the one I'd given her, but she wanted me to upgrade it to something more impressive. "It's not that your ring isn't nice," she said with a shrug. "It's just, I want something I can feel proud to show my friends." I was floored. I'd chosen her ring carefully, saving for months to get her a beautiful solitaire. And yet here she was practically embarrassed by it. When I reminded her of how much the ring meant to me, she rolled her eyes. "If you loved me, you'd understand," she said flatly. "I don't want to look like I'm wearing some dime store ring." That line hurt, but I brushed it off as wedding stress and moved on. However, her entitlement was just warming up. Next came her demands for the bridal party. I thought it would be simple enough for her to choose a color scheme and let the bridesmaids pick affordable dresses. But Rachel wanted designer dresses. Think Vera Wang. Each dress cost around $500, and she was insisting on a uniform look for all her bridesmaids. When her best friend Sarah expressed concern about the cost, Rachel shrugged. "They're going to be in my wedding," she said, almost offended. "If they can't afford it, they can take a loan or figure something out. This is about my special day. I'd do it for them if the tables were turned." It seemed like every time I tried to push for a more affordable option, Rachel doubled down. Then, to my disbelief, she started planning a destination bachelorette party, a long weekend in Cabo. She booked it before even consulting her bridesmaids, assuming they'd be as thrilled about it as she was. When a couple of her friends said it might be out of their budget, She threw a fit, calling them unsupportive and ungrateful. This is supposed to be my time to celebrate with my friends, she told me, clearly frustrated. If they can't handle that, then maybe they're not real friends. I try to reason with her. Don't you think it's a bit much? Some of your friends have other expenses to think about. She glared at me like I'd insulted her. You know what? Forget it. You'll never understand. By this point, I was drowning in her expectations. She wanted a wedding planner, even though I suggested we could handle the details ourselves to save money. But Rachel argued that her work was too demanding, that she needed someone to manage the stress for her. Without telling me, she went ahead and hired one, an expensive one. You're so busy working anyway, she snapped when I asked her about the cost. Why can't I get some help? It was as if she saw my hard work as a justification for her demands. I was working extra shifts and freelancing on the side just to build our wedding fund. And instead of gratitude, she seemed to see it as an excuse to push further. When I thought things couldn't escalate more, she started adding necessities to the list. First was her wedding beauty budget. She wanted a full pre-wedding regimen, monthly spa treatments, a personal trainer, and customized skincare. She expected me to pay for it, naturally, claiming it was part of the wedding. When I hesitated, suggesting we split the cost, she gave me a look that could kill. So, you don't want me to look my best on our wedding day? This is important to me, and honestly, if you were a decent fiancé, you want to pay for it. It was like she had an endless list of must-haves, each one with a price tag attached. When I suggested a simple honeymoon, a cozy cabin in the mountains, or even a beach closer to home, she practically laughed in my face. A honeymoon is supposed to be exotic, she said. It's our first trip as a married couple, and you want it to be boring? But the final straw came when Rachel started involving my family. Apparently, she'd been talking to my sister, Becca, who had taken Rachel's side entirely. One night at a family dinner, Becca cornered me and began pressuring me to loosen up for the sake of the wedding. Rachel's just trying to make it special, bro, she said, eyeing me like I was the unreasonable one. You can't be cheap about something like this. Think about her family, all her guests. Don't you want to make her proud? It was like she'd cast some kind of spell over my own family. No one could see that I was bending over backward to make this work, and it wasn't enough. Every time I suggested cutting costs, Rachel would turn it around on me, making me feel like I was the one who didn't care. One evening, I got home from work to find Rachel flipping through catalogs of designer household items, things she'd added to our wedding registry without consulting me. It was filled with ridiculously expensive home goods, like luxury appliances, designer decor, even vacation packages. I stared at the registry in disbelief. Are you serious? I asked, holding up the list. She barely looked up. People can buy what they think we're worth. If they can't afford it, they don't have to get anything. I was stunned. Rachel, this is beyond excessive. Your friends and family are going to feel uncomfortable even looking at this list. Then they're not really my friends, are they? She replied with a shrug. She didn't even seem to care. It was as if anyone who wasn't willing to meet her standards wasn't worth her time. I was trying my best to keep my cool, but everything inside me was starting to unravel. I'd gone from excited fiancé to bankroller, the guy financing her fantasy. When I brought up how uncomfortable I was with all of this, she would laugh it off, worse, make me feel like I was failing her. But things reached a breaking point one evening when she dropped a bombshell on me. She sat me down and said she'd talked to her parents about financing part of the wedding, and, to my utter shock, they suggested I take out a loan. A loan? I asked, completely floored. Rachel, are you hearing yourselves? Yes, a loan, she said, as if she were suggesting something as simple as picking up a carton of milk. This wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event, and we're already in too deep to scale back now. My parents agree that it's worth going all out, and we'll pay it back over time. I'm not taking out a loan to pay for a wedding, Rachel. I'm just not, I said with my firm tone. Her face fell, and her expression darkened. So, you're just gonna let me down like this? After everything I've put into planning, I stared at her dumbfounded. Let you down? Rachel, I've been working overtime, picking up freelance projects, doing everything I can to pay for this wedding. And you want me to take out a loan on top of that? For one day? Yes, for one day. She snapped back, her voice rising. This is supposed to be our day. I'm the bride, and this is my dream wedding. Can't you see how much this means to me? Do you even care? Rachel, of course, I care about you. But I'm not willing to go into debt for something we don't need. We could have a beautiful, meaningful wedding without throwing money around like it's endless. She looked at me with an icy glare. You know what? Maybe you're not the person I thought you were. Maybe I need someone who's willing to go the extra mile for me, who actually values what I want. I felt a pit in my stomach. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So, what? You're saying you'd leave me if I don't go into debt for this wedding? If that's what it takes to make you understand how much this means to me, she said, crossing her arms, then maybe yes. In that moment, it felt like everything we'd built was crumbling around us. I couldn't believe that the woman I'd spent 4 years with, the woman I was planning to spend my life with, was willing to throw it all away because I wasn't prepared to go into debt for her perfect day. For a moment, I sat there in silence, a numbness spreading through me as I tried to process her words. And then, as painful as it was, a strange sense of clarity came over me. I realized that this wasn't just about the wedding. It was about what kind of life we'd have together. If Rachel was willing to manipulate and threaten me over this, what would happen in the future? What would she demand if I lost my job? Or if we hit a rough financial patch? Would she walk out then too? I took a deep breath and looked her in the eyes. Rachel, I said quietly, if having your dream wedding is more important to you than our relationship, then maybe you're right. Maybe we're not meant to be together. She looked stunned, as if she couldn't believe I'd actually called her bluff. Are you serious? She asked, her voice almost shaking. Yeah, I am. I said, the weight of my decision sank in. I can't be with someone who values material things more than a life together, more than a partnership. You want this wedding to impress your friends and your family, but it's not about us anymore. I don't want to start our marriage in debt, and I shouldn't have to fight you on that. Rachel was silent, her face twisting as she processed my words. She stood up and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. For the next few days, we barely spoke. My sister, Becca, even tried calling me, telling me that I was being stubborn and that I should apologize to Rachel. She didn't understand. None of them did. They couldn't see what was really happening. A week passed with no word from Rachel. Then, one evening, I got a message from her saying she was moving out of our apartment. She didn't want to talk. She'd made her decision. In her mind, I was the one who had let her down, and she had no intention of compromising. The breakup felt surreal at first. I kept waiting for her to call, to say she'd had a change of heart, that she'd realized what really mattered. But those calls never came. Instead, I heard through mutual friends that she'd been bad-mouthing me, painting me as some kind of villain who didn't value her. According to her, I was the cheap fiancé who wouldn't invest in his future wife. I was hurt, and part of me was angry. But as the days turned into weeks, I also felt something else, relief. I didn't have to worry about a mountain of debt, about selling my future just to make her happy for one day. And slowly, I realized that I'd dodged a bullet. When I ran into Sarah, one of Rachel's bridesmaids, she confided that most of the bridal party was relieved too. Honestly, she said, none of us could afford what she wanted. She made us feel guilty for not wanting to go into debt, and it was exhausting. You probably saved yourself a lifetime of that. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing. I'm glad I stood my ground. Love shouldn't come with price tags or ultimatums. Love is about support, partnership, and building a life together, not throwing money at superficial things. Looking back, I feel lucky that I was able to see her true priorities before it was too late. And while I'll always have a soft spot for the woman I once thought she was, I know now that the person she became was someone I could never have built a life with. It hurt to lose her, but at least now I still have myself. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. So please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.